So this guy from the city, he goes to visit his aunt and uncle out in the country. And as he arrives, his uncle's out there with, I don't know, some sort of livestock. I don't know if it's goats or, maybe I think it's sheep is what he had. And there's a dog out there. And as the story goes, the farmer whistled, and the dog started barking and herding up the sheep and like getting them into the pen and doing whatever a dog does with sheep when it's herding them, right? And so the guy from the city was pretty impressed with his uncle. He's like, and the dog is like, man, he said, Uncle Joe, he said, what's the name of that dog? That's pretty, I've never seen anything like that. That's pretty cool. And Uncle Joe thinks for a moment, and he says, he says, what's the name of that flower that has like thorns on it and like pricks you like when you grab in the wrong spot? The guy goes, Rose? He goes, yeah. So Uncle Joe yells out, Rose, Rose, what's the name of the dog? We are prone to forget. We are forgetful people. We need things to help us remember. If we don't have those things, we are prone to just keep moving on. And I get it, I understand it. It's because you right now are like, what's happening in January, February, March? I mean, we're always looking at the next thing coming down the pike at us, right? And so it's easy to let go of. It's easy in our memory banks to And so what I've done over the course of the year, and maybe you have too, is I look for things to help me remember. Because I will forget the meaning, the significance of things that happen in my life. So over here I've got, if you've been around a little bit, you know that in the last year plus I've taken up playing golf. Had let it go for 10 or 12 years, right? Now I'm back into it because I got some people that I like playing with. This is a golf ball I saved with Danny and Sean and Josh. We took second place in a B flight in a tournament last August. I was very impressed that 4 guys who can't play a lick won like a t-shirt. So I kept the golf ball. I thought that was pretty cool, okay? This golf ball here, I was with Eric and Danny and Ryan, so my son and my 2 son-in-laws. The date on this is 11/26. We were playing in November in the cold. But what was cool about this was I birdied the number 17 hole out at a golf club of Wentzville. And I wanted to hang on to this because it was because I don't shoot birdies. And so this was very, very cool. And the people that I was with, so that they can remember that I shot a birdie, I put their names on it. All right? Okay. This was from my daughter at her wedding 7 years ago. There it is. It says, Pop, you were the first man I ever loved. Even though you're giving me away today, I'll always be your little girl. Love, Kirsten, 9/3/2016. And she gave me an empty money clip. That was significant of that day, okay? And so I have hung on to this, all right? Not to be outdone. This is from Casey at her wedding. It says, Mike, father of the bride, on May 22nd, 2021, but it's on a baseball. Because Casey knows I collect baseball. I probably got 3 dozen baseballs in there with various things on them, and she's like, I'll put them. Now, I think she did this so that I will remember their anniversary date so that I will get a gift. That's what I really think is the motivation behind this, but so far it's worked, okay? She's like 2 for 2, right? We got 2 anniversaries in there, right? Yeah, okay, all right. Now, it used to be, here's what we did, right? We just collected pictures, okay? How many of you have pictures of memorable moments in your family's life, all right? Now we've gravitated towards, I have a son who's getting married, and I have a save the date that's magnetic. Used to be a paper thing, and now they got these magnets so you stick it on the fridge. Like, I want this on my fridge for a year before their wedding. Not really, but I got to, right? Because it's my son, okay? And especially when they come home at Christmas. Got to be up there, right? I want them to think we're going to be there, okay? But we used to do this stuff, right? Everybody's got a picture there. of memorable things. There's my family, there's Patty and I, and there's me, because I'm a basketball official, with what was kind of a cool moment from the Post-Dispatch, shot me doing a jump ball there at Parkway West. This is 2015. This thing is 8 years old. This was Casey, went to the Blues game, and what was memorable about this was that in the pre-games, one of the Red Wings guys, it was a Wings-Blues game, and if you know, we're from Detroit, so we typically try and get to the Wings games, but one of the Wings players lifted the puck up over the ice, and some guy got it, and then looked at a poor little teenage girl sitting next to him and felt bad for him and handed her the puck, right? So, but we framed this whole thing with the ticket, a picture of her at the game with her mom, and the puck. Why? To remember that was kind of a cool moment that she got to experience, right? I hid this thing back here because when I was thinking about the pictures, we got this year for Christmas. This was a gift to my wife. It's not enough now that you have pictures like one at a time. Now you can like upload them digitally, and you can just have them go in your house all the time so that you can just keep adding to these things, right? Because you can't have enough pictures, especially of the kids and the grandkids. Some of you don't understand that yet, but you will, all right? All sorts of things I use to try and remember. This is a stone that I took our first year at Stonebridge. We were meeting in another location. God had provided us a spot on Saturday nights. We met on Saturday nights for 1 year before the Lord opened up the doors for this place. And one of the last weeks that I was there, I took this rock as a reminder of God's provision for us at a good spot. It was a good location. The people were gracious to work with us. And I'd never wanted to forget his hand in opening that door, of making that possible for us. We need things to help us remember. What do you have that you use to help you remember? What is it that you don't want to forget? And here's the thing. All of these things here. This is JDC. This is our grandson. April 26, 23 with his footprint. Birth of our grandson. Kirsten and Danny took and put his little footprint on that. You know what I've wondered about this? Will I play catch with him with this baseball? Will he be old enough? Will he be interested? Will I be here to play catch with my grandson with the baseball that he got when he was born? What will you use to remind you of stuff you don't want to forget? And not just moments in your life. What will you use to remind yourself of moments when God met you? See, I think we can do a fairly good job of remembering people, places, things of maybe you might say not very significant. This isn't a big deal to you. This is a stone from 2010. This stone is 13 years old. It was a trip to Arizona to watch my son play soccer out there. Patty and I flew out for a weekend out to Scottsdale and traveled around with him as he played 2 soccer games. And I grabbed a rock because I didn't want to forget how much fun we had that weekend. That was also the weekend that I found out that I was diabetic, and I had my first non-Coke to drink because the doctor said you need to knock off Coke. We're in a Longhorn. I ordered a Coke out of habit. Have a Coke with my cheeseburger. And I thought, I probably ought to start drinking Diet Coke because that's what the doctor said. First Diet Coke I ever had was in Arizona. How do I know that? Because I got something to trigger memory. What do you have that triggers memories for you of stuff you don't want to forget? And bigger than that, what do you have that's going to help you remember where God intersected your life? Are there times where you think the Lord met with you? And without a shadow of a doubt, in your spirit, there's something inside your soul, there's something inside your heart that this isn't normal. I really felt like I prayed for. I was in this spot and sort of just throwing prayers in the air like sometimes we do, and this happened. You don't want to forget those times Because if you do, you'll be prone to going, was that just an accident? Was that a coincidence? Did that really happen? I'm not sure. I don't know. I have a variety of things, and maybe the most important thing that I have that I'm leaving for my kids, besides this stuff, because they're going to have to sort through the baseballs, is my journals. I go back to 34 years I've been keeping journals. 34 years of recording thoughts, of recording my interactions with the Lord, of recording times where I spent in His Word. And as I sit to you today on a new year, here's my most recent one that I start every year. And the one thing I've done differently now is I've started a prayer journal where I'm keeping track of things I'm praying for and answers to prayer just specifically apart from what's happening in my world. Because I thought, you know what? It came out of a friend who said that as they went through their father's stuff, they came across their dad's prayer journal, and the number of times they saw in their prayer journal that Dad was praying for them by name. And it was an interesting thing to have him reflect a little bit about what that meant for him to see his name in print and know his dad had been praying for him through his teen years because they were dated. And he could recall what was happening in his time as he was going through those years, and here's Dad was praying for him. What moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, what will your kids, what will your grandkids remember of your legacy to them? Some of you are wrapping up high school. Some of you have only got months, a year and a half to go. What are your students going to remember about your time there? About the influence that you had on their life then? Don't think that they're not watching. Don't think that you can't leave an influence. You absolutely can. Just what will that influence be? God is forever wanting us to learn lessons. And if you have a Bible, if you have an app, whatever you've got, I want to show you one particular story in the Old Testament that sort of would set the stage. That my hope is that this year you will be looking for encounters with the living God, and you'll be recording those. You'll be remembering those. Somehow you're going to keep track of those because your spirit, your heart needs them. And those you love are looking to you for some sort of leadership. Hey, Dad. Hey, Mom. Hey, Grandma. Hey, Grandpa. Hey, friend. You say that your faith is important to you. Show me how. Let me see how. Let me see the difference that God made in your life, because I really want to know if it's real. And I would bet, I'm not a betting man, I would put money down that there are more people out there that genuinely want to know, is God real, than are not. They just don't know where to look. Joshua chapter 3, chapter 4, let me set the stage for you. Let's see. Oh, man. I didn't bring the remote. Oh. Right here. That was all a clue, like I forgot the remote. All right. Let me set the stage for you. What's going on in Joshua chapter 3 and 4. God had promised Israel a land. He said, I'm going to give it to you. All you've got to do is just go in and you've just got to occupy. You've got to trust me with it. They went in, they spied out the land. If you know the Old Testament, you know they went in and they're like, oh, we can't do this. I mean, yeah, it's a cool land. It's like got all sorts of stuff. It's everything we want. It's our dream house. We can't afford it. There are giants living in the land. There are bad people there. There's no way God's going. We're just, who are we? We are too wimpish to go in and do this, right? And so God said, all right, fine. You won't get the land. And they wandered for 40 years. And basically everyone that was 20 and older perished. They just wandered and then they died off, right? And God raised up a next generation that would believe him, okay? That's an interesting statement. Each new day, we take a step into the future. Today's a new day into your future. This day is the first day of the rest of your life. It is a genuine, honest statement. What is going to become of the rest of your life? Today's your day. What are you going to do with it? And so they come to this spot where God says, all right, all that previous generation, they died off. You don't want to believe me? That's fine. God's a perfect gentleman. Have it your way. Not a big deal. You just won't see what I promised you. And I wonder to this day, I honestly do, how many people in church, sitting in churches, how many people that grew up in the faith didn't want to believe God for what he said he would do, and so they perished. They just dried up in their spirit. And you just got disinterested and you're missing what God wants to do. So they come to the spot where they're over here on this side of the Jordan River. Jordan River flows this way, and they come to a spot where they're heading towards Jericho, but somewhere right in here, the Jordan, they come to a spot during, it says in chapter 3 of Joshua, flood stage. God says, I want you to take the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God. You're to move out from your positions. You're to follow it. Then you'll know which way to go. You've never been this way before. Keep a distance of about 1,000 yards between you and the ark. Don't go near the ark. And Joshua told the people, consecrate for yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord's going to do amazing things among you. So they took up the ark, and they got to the Jordan River, which during flood stage, springtime, it says that when the priests put their feet in the water, that back up here in El Adam, it is a town today that you can visit, 15 miles upstream, the Jordan River dried up. I was doing some digging. The Jordan River at flood stage would have been, they think, between 9 to 12 feet deep. Would have been maybe 300-400 yards wide. To give you some comparison, the Mississippi River by the arch. I thought this was interesting. If you Google how deep is the Mississippi River, there are spots that get really deep, but they say on average from St. Paul, Minnesota to St. Louis, on average it runs 9 to 12 foot deep. There at the arch, I wrote down, it is maybe, how far did I say there? It's 300 feet wide at the arch to get to Illinois on the other side. So that gives you some idea of the body of water that they come to. And I don't know about you, but if you stood at the arch looking at the Mississippi River and said, we got to get to the other side, wouldn't you be going, how are we going to do this? Like, we don't have boats. Like, where's a barge? Is there going to be a ferry get us across? And you got these leaders saying, you know what, God's going to dry up this water, and you're going to walk over on dry land. That's significant, right? It wasn't muddy, a marsh, with their wheels getting stuck, with their livestock getting stuck in the muck and the mire and the little kids, and they walked over on dry land, on hard ground, like you would walk out today. You know what's fair? That is mind-boggling to think about. You really are left saying to yourself, could that really happen? Is that possible that could happen? There are monuments, you can see the videos, there are monuments to this day in Jericho and along the Jordan River of places where they think historically this happened. So this is recorded as historical fact. Man, I wish God would dry up a river in my life. Don't you? Wouldn't that be cool? You wish God would do some supernatural kind of like, whoa, man, I didn't see that coming kind of thing? What I wonder is, has he? Has he? Has the Lord done some cool stuff in your life, but you've just forgotten? And so you're waiting for the next cool thing because you don't remember the last cool thing? And so you're on shaky ground because you're not sure he can come through again? Or will he come through? And the reason is, I guess he did. You need a job. Can God come through with a job? I don't know. Has he provided before? Your marriage not in the shape that you want it to be? And you really wonder, is there any shot that this God could restore your marriage? Could he rekindle your love? Could he give you compassion again for that person? You're facing an illness. somebody you love is sick. Can the Lord see them through that? Can the Lord give them the strength to go through that? Has He? That's what they're facing. They're standing here going, the Lord said, we're going to get over here. How is that going to happen? How? They walk through on dry land. The priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant went first. 40,000 warriors followed, and then the people all gathered. Ark of the Covenant, Raiders Lost Ark, 1981, Harrison Ford. The Ark is, I think, an interesting thing that there are people that are pursuing trying to find it. Could you imagine what would happen if they did find the Ark of the Covenant? Think about it for a second. What would that mean if they found it? How many things would that prove true if they found the Ark? That's an interesting thing to think about. It's not just like, oh, we found like, I don't know, the Constitution buried somewhere. I mean, you found something that was central to the whole of the Old Testament that the people of God said they represented the living God. The Ark, this is a picture of it. If you saw Harrison Ford's, in the Ark were 2 tablets of stone that contained the 10 Commandments. In the Ark was 1 pot of manna that sustained them through all the wilderness, and was a rod of Aaron, who was the priest, that had not died out. It was budding. It was a box that was covered in gold, and then on top were these 2 angelic-type beings with their wings outstretched that was called the mercy seat. It was representative of a God of mercy who would meet with his people. I find that interesting. It wasn't called the judgment seat. You waiting for God to judge you? Is that who your God is? He's a judging God. He's looking to whack you on the wrist for what you've done, how you haven't measured up. Reminder of all the ways you've fallen short. Is that who God is? Because the God of the Old Testament was a God who was found on the mercy seat. Mercy, everlasting love, compassion, where there's a place for forgiveness, where there's a place of welcomingness. Your vision of God, your view of God, where does it come from? And does it come from the Scriptures, or does it come from some other places that have influenced you? So this Ark of the Covenant was going to lead God's people through. The priests went first. They got their feet wet. They went in. They stood in the middle. It says 40,000 warriors went across. And then after that, the people followed. And then they gathered up 12 stones. They actually did 2 monuments. They set a thing of stones in the middle of the river. And then they took another 12 stones and they put them on what we saw was Gilgal, the town there. That they set up another monument there. From those stones, God wanted to do 2 things. Okay? In your outline, here's 2 things I want you to remember as you head into the new year. I want you to look for and follow after Jesus. They followed the ark. When you see the ark, move. And I love what the text says. Why should they do that? Because you've never been this way before. You've never been in 2024. Some of you are looking forward to graduating. You've never graduated before. Some of you are looking forward to being parents. You've never been a parent before. Some of you are looking forward to retirement. You've never retired before. You've never been this way before. What's going to give you the wisdom you need to live life well? Except that, as it refers here, I love what it says of the text. He's the living God. He's the Lord of all the earth. When we follow the Lord Jesus, He knows the way. He is the living God as opposed to the dead God. I serve a living Savior. This is not a dead faith. This is not an exercise in like, come, let's do something cool. I was going to say do something cool on Sunday. Some of us, you don't even feel that way, right? We're going to go to church on Sunday. We get to come and we meet with the living Lord. And He meets with us. Isn't that what Christmas was? Isn't that what Christmas is? Emmanuel, which means God See, that's what I don't know. Is he with you? Do you think God is with you? Or do you think you're on your own? I can't answer that for you. I know what the Word says. I know the stories of people who have walked with the Lord say that he's been with them, that he's led them, he's guided them, he's given them wisdom, he's given them strength, he's given them direction. But not everyone can say that. And I oftentimes wonder, what's the difference? Why can some people say that and not others? Why can some people say the Lord is with? I guess they're magical. Have a little special pixie dust on them. God loves them a little better. Doesn't love you so much. You're clawing and you're like, oh, I just want God to, What does it make them so special? Nothing. I would say it's your unwillingness to do a couple of things. And this is where it's going to get a little dicey, but I want to say it. They were told to consecrate themselves. They were told to make themselves ready. They were told to purify themselves. It's not a word that we use much, but consecrate means to set something apart for special use. I tried to think. I'm not sure I have anything that I've set apart for special use. I mean, what do you have anymore that's just dedicated solely for one thing? Most everything is like multi-purpose, multitask. Do you have anything really special? Do you have anything that's consecrated, that's set apart for just one use? What about your body for your spouse? That's consecrated. That's set apart for special use. That's not just out there on the open market, right? And you know what it's like when it is, right? Doesn't go well. No one's happy. You're not happy. Spouse isn't happy. It's not good. You see, it's why it's so rare for us that I stand before you and say, if you would want to follow after Jesus, I want to ask you to think about something. Is there something in 2024, as you're standing right now in January, you need to let go of? It's holding you back. What is it? Is it you just can't trust him? Is it you're afraid? Is it if you really abandon yourself to Jesus, would he let you down? Would you fall on your face? Would you look like a fool? If you really wanted to live out your faith, would you have to become poor and take a vow of poverty? Do you have to just be groveling all over people, loving them? What is it? What's holding you back from really following Jesus if he's the living God? This is the front of a new year. Why not ask yourself, if you're going to take your faith seriously this year, what would it mean for me to do that? What would it mean for you to make yourself ready so that you could follow after Jesus and see him? Where is the Lord leading you? What are the next steps for you? What do you need to take to be free? We talk a bunch here about forgiveness. Have you yet to forgive somebody who's hurt you and you're hanging on to it? And the best way I can do that for you is if I make that sentence and some name pops into your head, that's the person you need to deal with. You've not forgiven them. They've caused you a pain and you're still hanging on to it. Why are you hanging on to it? Why are you nursing it? Is it making you a better person, nursing that hurt? I'm just trying to forget it, Mike, and then you keep bringing it up. Is that how you want to live for what? The next little bit of your days? What's the next step you need to take? Some of you have been holding your heart back from being generous. Why? Have you been burned in the past? Someone's taken advantage of you, and so you're never going to let someone take advantage of you again. And so you're not going to put your heart out there. You're not going to serve. You're not going to get involved with other people. Because why? Because you did that once, and Mike, it hurt. I got burned. You're going to live the rest of your life like that, protecting yourself, guarding yourself? What kind of life is that? What's the next step that you need to take? The waters dried up when they put their feet in them, not before. Not based on their good intentions, not based on all right, I thank God we're going to try this. They took and they marched into the river and 15 miles upstream, things happen. I think about the people whose hearts have genuinely been changed by those who have served them, loved them, taught them. They decided to get their feet wet, decided to get involved, decided to no longer sit on the sidelines. I hear it all the time in the world of athletics, because I'm around it a bunch with what I do. And you hear about teams that say, we're coming back for one more year. We've got unfinished business. And they commit themselves to what? Strength, conditioning, practicing, studying, being a better athlete. Why? Because there's a prize that they want they haven't attained yet. What's the prize you're after? This year, what's the prize you'd like to get? What would you like to have? You want a raise? Would that be enough of a prize for you? Do you want better relationships? More money? Better health? You're right now at the beginning of it. What steps will you take towards that end? Or are you just hoping it's going to happen? Because I can promise you, if you're just going to do what you did last year, it's not going to happen. These guys, on a practical level, said, Lord, we're all in. We set ourselves apart. We purified ourselves. We want to see you. It's interesting. Why did they? I asked myself that. It said they had to keep 1,000 yards back. Why did they have to stay back 1,000 yards, which is a good chunk of change? It's so that everybody could see. So everybody could follow Jesus. Everybody could see the ark and go. Today, as we're out here, I think the coolest thing that happens is when people see Jesus in you. They want to know, is your faith real? Well, watch me. I'm not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to get it right all the time, but the coolest thing you can say to your kids who want to know if faith is real is just say, watch me. Watch how I love. Watch how I give. Watch how I serve. Watch how I treat people. Because you, doggone it, we just see enough in the newspaper every day to see the stink and the hurt and the pain and the stench that's out there. I don't want to live like that. I think Jesus gives us the freedom to do something different. So he says, hey, keep your eyes on the ark, look to Jesus, the author of your faith, and follow him. Here's the second thing that he asked them to do then. As I said, is to share your stories of the Lord's faithfulness. So the whole point of those stones, those signs, those rocks, was to say something. And here's what I said. Why do we have signs? What is it the signs do? It's not a trick question. What do signs do?
Show you where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. They point a direction. I still remember this day when I was trying to navigate getting to the hospital with the birth of one of our kids, and I was following blue H's. Blue H with an arrow. Blue H going this way. Blue H going that way. Nobody on the radio saying, hey, Mike, turn right here. It was all before GPS and like my phone, right? Signs exist to communicate, to say something to us. So no target shooting. Okay? Parking prohibited. Parking will be fine. I'd turn back if I was you. Right? Signs are meant to say something to us if we will observe, if we will look, if we will listen. The whole point of the arch. Arch is called a memorial. What are we wanting to remember with the arch? You've been there. We see it. You drive down 4064, you drive down 70, you see the arch. What is it they wanted us to remember that they put the arch together? Gateway to the west. This is the westward expansion. It was everything on the east begins to move and flow to the west, starting in St. Louis. The War Memorial. What are we supposed to remember? The sacrifice? Doesn't say anything, does it? There's not a recording there. There's not a script there. You just see those pictures and you think, what am I supposed to remember? How long before people, this generation, forgets the sacrifice of Vietnam, of Desert Storm, of the conflict? How long before we forget the pain that was involved, families that lost loved ones, protecting freedom? Mount Rushmore. Why do we put those faces in stone? What is it we're supposed to remember about those guys? Why was it a big enough deal that we spent money, time, energy, effort to do that? It's so that we wouldn't forget, because we are prone to forget. Martin Luther King. Why do we do that? Because we will fail to remember lessons that these people taught us they wanted to communicate to us. The rocks were to speak to two groups of people. So chapter 4, they took 12 stones. In verse 3, they took 12 men. Each of the men took a stone from the middle of the Jordan, from where the priest stood. Joshua called the 12 men. He appointed them from Israel, one from each tribe. He said, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' you tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord." Jump on down to verse 19 of chapter 4. On the 10th day of the first month, the people went up from the Jordan. They camped at Gilgal. Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they'd taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, "In the future, when your descendants ask their fathers, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them, 'Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you. The Lord your God did to the Jordan just what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried it up. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God." Our kids, our grandkids, need to know that faith is real. How will they know? Your stories. How will my kids know that my faith meant something to me? I'm not saying they buy it. I bet you if I asked you in this room, how many of you would say that your parents had a faith that was real? Some of you would put your hands up. And then if I said to you, "But did you buy it?" your hands would go down. Just because you say that your faith is real doesn't mean that your kids and your grandkids are going to buy into it. But I promise you this, with absolute 100% certainty, if you don't talk about it, they never will. If it doesn't mean much to you to share, to pass along, there's no way in heck your kids and your grandkids are going to hear about it from you. I heard about it from my grandma. My grandma was instrumental in my faith. My grandma made sure that I went to church. I had people at the church that loved me, that knew my name. My parents didn't take me to church. That's not a knock on them. They just weren't church-going people. Didn't mean that much to them. But hey, you want to go, Grandma? Go ahead and go, right? So my grandma was instrumental on where I am today. My kids will at least have the opportunity to know what Dad thought and what he believed as I sift through these journals, as I see what Dad was praying for, as I see were there answers to prayer. God, he was asking God for things. Did God come through? Or was it just words up in the space? I don't know. The community is watching. Your people at work, that work around you, your neighbors, your other family. Why do you go to church on Sunday? Why do you invest so much time? Why do you give? Why do you do that? We don't do that. Our lives are okay, right? It's a big deal. Why do you make such a big deal about it? Those are valid questions. Those are fair questions that you should think through and you should be able to answer. Why do you? Why did you give? Why would you serve? Could I give you a couple of reasons to think about? If you don't think God is real, it's a waste of your time. I'm a pastor telling you that. If you don't think the Lord is real, it is a waste of your time to serve and to give. You might be a better person. You might get some charitable points with the community. But by and large, there's nothing. Go play golf on Sunday. Seriously. Go to the Cardinal game on Sunday. Go do stuff you enjoy. But if the Lord is real, if he is the living and true God, if Jesus is Emmanuel, God with you, if he walks with you, beside you, if he's walking with you into a new year, then who else would you want to serve? Where else would you want to place your trust? Where else would you want to be on Sunday with your kids so that they're hearing stories of how much God loves them and how much Jesus wants for them and how he wants to love and serve and help them? How he wants to be with your family. Being with a community of people that you know are praying for you, praying with you. You're praying for them. Before service this morning, talking with somebody, they're going to the doctor's tomorrow. I was able to say, you know what, I'm going to be praying for you. I will be. I'll be praying that as they go and have a visit with the doctor tomorrow, there'll be some wisdom and some direction for them as they're dealing with some health stuff. Doctors do so much, and then I believe there's a God that supersedes. I believe there's a Lord that heals. I believe there's a Lord that gives direction. That's what I believe. What will you remember from this year? I need some help. Gina, will you just head that way? Will you head that way? I'm going to tell you what I need you to do. Just walk up and down and have people take a rock. Okay? Just offer them a rock. Even, will you help me out, ma'am? Just walk up and down and have people take a rock. All right? That's all you got to do. Will you take a rock? What's the step of faith that you need to take? What's the direction that you want God to show you? Bear with me here as I read to you a little bit. Chuck Swindoll writes, within another generation, Vietnam will be just another place on the map in Southeast Asia. There will be no memory in the minds of the young. There will be no sense of anguish, no understanding of what it did to our nation, no sadness over the men and women who sacrificially fought and many who died there. But we can keep remembrance alive by celebrating with quiet honor the events of that time. That's why the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, the white crosses that stand silent in Arlington, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the list goes on and on. Memorials are places provided for us to stand and be quiet, to read, and especially to reflect and to pass on to the next generation the roots of our heritage. They give the present significance because they give the past perspective. And then he goes on and he says some interesting things. He says, you know, the hard part about life is this. Someone dies, and the sun rises the next day, and we put grass over them, and we just rush on. You lose a job, and no one mourns. They replace your chair, move someone else in the seat, and no one comes alongside you to ask how you doing. What do you need? Your kid is giving you grief, and it pains you. It really hurts you. But no one takes the time to sit beside you and say, how you doing? How you processing that? Where are you headed? What's going on? We just rush on. 23 is in the books, and you're already making plans about your goals and your things for 24. And have you stopped long enough to say, what do I want to remember from this past year? What do I not want to forget? What do I want to remember of God's goodness this past year? And if you don't do that, I promise you, if you don't do that, then the next thing you face, you'll wonder, is God for me? Is he against me again? Because you failed to remember what he wanted to show you. This stone is 7 years in my pocket. 7 years I've carried almost daily this Petoskey stone. I share the story again because it's significant to me, because there was a time when I was on sabbatical where I was asking God, what's the next direction? What do you want from me? Where's my life headed? Lord, I would love if you would show me a sign of your favor and help me find a Petoskey stone in Little West Traverse Bay, where Petoskey stones are generally found about a mile, about an hour's drive north up in the town of Petoskey. Not so much in Traverse City Bay, not so much in August when the whole vacation season has been along that strip. Lord, would you just do that? I know it's a weird request. And then I found one. And I've carried it in my pocket every day as a reminder that God is faithful and that his favor rests. But Christmas, isn't that what we say? Peace on earth to men on whom his favor rests. God's favor rests on you? How would you know? How do you remember? Because you're going to face those times. I want you to use that stone to do this. Is there something that you would love to see God do? And I would challenge you to pray over that. Lord, I'm going to hang on to this, and I want to see it come true. Or is there something that you want to remember of God's goodness this past year? And maybe just put a simple initial on it. And you keep that with you every day from now till Easter as a visible reminder of God's faithfulness to you in his past, and that he will be faithful in the present to come. Because that's what those stones were for those people. God had brought them out of the fear into a new day. And he said, I've been with you. I've gotten you this far. I'm going to take you forward. And every time they walked by, there was a reminder. Every time you reach in and you grab that stone, it's a reminder of God's goodness to you, his faithfulness to you. You don't want to forget it. Team's coming up. They're going to sing one last song. As we're singing this song, maybe you're able to take that stone and maybe you pray over it. Maybe there is something that you want to ask God for. Maybe there's something that you want to hang on to, that you want to remember. I want to give you this chance while we're singing to sort of dedicate that back to him. See what he might do. Is it possible there might be something to this?